distribution from local screens to global streams in a way that maximizes return on investment for African films. And on behalf of the GIZ, the German Development Corporation, and Afreximbank, CANNEX Inc. Creations, I'd like to welcome all of you to this session. And I also would like to make a honorable mention to our partners in this initiative, who are Dalberg Media and Dalberg Research. My name is Linda Musita. I work for the GIZ as a law advisor in a project that is purely focused on strengthening the film industries in African countries, as well as so through the value chain from development to from development of films all the way to distribution of films. So when I was told to moderate this session, my first outcry was, I don't like the sound of my voice, so I really apologize to you all for what you're about to go through. Please have mercy on me. So to start us off, I think we usually, within the scope of supporting films in this continent, we usually, in the past many years, we've always been focusing on production, post-production, and then the films are out there ready, and people don't have places to put their films. The distribution aspect of it is not there. So next slide. My dear Serene. So there's this quote by Steve Markovitz, who is here with us. That's sort of the distribution question is an ongoing question and a huge one. And I think there's a real danger with all this new equity funding going around. It's exciting. As producers, we may just grab the money and make the films, but we have to solve the distribution problem at the same time. Otherwise, in 10 years, all of these investors are going to come back to us and ask us what happened to our money. So that's basically the context of the entire discussion. Steve, you're surprised I put you on blast over there. So that's generally the context of the discussion that we're going to have. But first of all, I would like to welcome the CEO of CANNEX Creations Inc. to give us opening remarks for this session.
In terms of money coming into a project, you need to think about how the money is going to come out of the project in the form of return on the money that was put in. The worst thing that any investor wants is for their money to go into a film and for the film to sit on the shelf and not make any money. So this is a very crucial topic. CANNEX Creations is mandated to activate and commercialize IP. Commercialization in the space of film and TV has mostly to do with licensing and distribution. So let us put our heads together. This is a result of a collaboration between Afreximbank and GIZ that we're here today around the areas of film distribution and audience development. And we're looking forward to a good conversation and hearing some of the insights from our partners, Dalberg, who are going to be facilitating a portion of this session. So with that, I'll say have a good event. Looking forward to hearing all the conversation. And over back to you, Linda.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for being here. And so across East, West, South, and North. So we're going to have a fun little quiz, a Mentimeter quiz. If you have, I believe everyone has like internet Wi-Fi connection, and Serene is going to take us through the quiz. At least to just give us some pep, since we just came from a whole distribution session. We need a break to just see what we know about how films are moving in the continent. So over to you, Serene.
Thank you so much, Linda. This is just a little fun break. If you can head over to menti.com, you can see it at the top of the screen and use this code to log into the quiz. Or we can do it in person if you have a connectivity issue, and feel free to let us know what you think is the correct answer.
What's the prize?
All right.
A nice good club.
A loud clap.
A great one.
We're starting off with a categorization. You need to go to menti.com and use this code at the top of the screen. The first question is, which African country produces the most films per year? Put the countries in the right order. I see some people logging in. I'll give you a few minutes. Okay. This is indeed in the correct order, actually. They are listed correctly. It was a trick. You didn't have to change the order. We have some people that got it right. I feel like there was some wrong answers in South Africa, Kenya. Maybe people put them in a different order. Let's move to the next one. All right. Roughly how many films does Nollywood produce per year? Let's go. Do we have any thoughts in the room? Shout out a number. 500. Let's see. 2 people voted that. 3. Any more? Anyone think maybe more than 5,000? 500. I see a 500 in the room. Anything else? Thoughts? All right. And the correct answer is indeed more than 2,500. 4 people got it right. Claps for them. Let's go. Keep it up. Yep. Let's do it. Next one. Which film was the highest grossing in 2024 from across the continent? We have Queen Latifah, Everyone Loves Yennefer, A Tribe Called Judah, A Soweto Love Story. Has anyone seen any of these films? Raise your hand if you have. Atenuke has seen it. All right, we have 2 answers going for Everyone Loves Jennifer. Anyone else? Is it possible no one has seen any of these 4 films? No? Okay, there we go. We have some answers there. 2 answers. There's 8 people on this quiz. You guys are thinking way too much on this. All right. And the correct answer, indeed. Everyone Loves Jennifer. You guys are on track. Let's go to the next one. Between 2018 and 2024, how many Nigerian films entered regular cinemas in Germany? And we're excluding films from this question. Excluding festivals, sorry. So we're counting regular cinemas. How many Nigerian films were screened in a cinema in Germany between 2018 and 2024? 3. We have some votes for 3. Some people are saying 1. Okay, it's coming head to head. Thoughts in the room, anyone? What do you guys think? 1? And the correct answer is 1. 1 movie. And we will dive into this in this session. Let's go. 4. Okay, 4 people got it right. Good job. Next one. Roughly how many cinemas does Kenya have as of 2024? Do we have any Kenyans in the room that can... No, cinemas, not screens. That's a very good question. We're looking at cinemas, not screens. Do we have Kenyan representation in the room who can validate this number? Rough crowd. Okay. Okay. 3 screens, that's what the number you got wrong. You were close. All right. What was the percentage increase in Showmax's subscriptions across Africa in 2024? How many more subscribers did Showmax get in the past year? This is a tough one. 12%, 36%. It's a tie. Is anyone a little bit more ambitious? Oh, someone put 63. Do we have a Showmax representative in the room? Very ambitious here. All right. The correct answer is 44%. No one got it right. Good to know. Good to know. Something that we also will dive into in this session. Okay, now we have an open-ended question. What was the best film you watched over the past year, and where did you watch it? Did you watch it on a streaming platform? The cinema? A YouTube channel? If you want, we can take answers from the room. Daniel, what was your favorite film from the past year?
No, I can't come to mind.
No answers? Okay, we're gonna... Oh, The Legend of the Vagabond Queen of Lagos. Nice one. watched at Nollywood Week. Very nice. We'll give it a few seconds for someone else typing in an answer. Anyone else? Feel free to just share your answer. We're also in a small room, we can hear each other. Red circle at Nile Vinato Cinema. Nice. All right. Okay. We'll give it one more second in case someone else is typing up. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. Oh, sorry, we missed one. The one who treats. Okay, let's go. So this is a fun one. We're going to build a word cloud so that we can look at this at the end of the session. In one word, how would you describe the Africa film industry? I'm going to randomly pick on someone to answer this question. Sergey, how would you describe the film?
Wow.
One word.
Frustrating.
Interesting choice of word. Linda, do you have a word?
Promise, there's promise, a lot of promise.
That's a more positive take on this. Nice, nice. No one's submitting words, just type in a word for me. You can do it. I see people typing. Underdog, nice. Opportunities comes up. One more, we'll wait for one more word. Potential, very nice. All right, we'll move ahead. Oh, there was one word coming in. Sorry, I had blocked it. Untapped, trying. Very nice. Okay, now, what do you wish the most to get out of this session? We'll go through this quickly. There's many reasons to be here, to connect with fellow people in the industry, to learn something maybe, learn about return on investments. Okay, we'll go ahead. We have, oh, nice. Most people want to, okay, we have gained practical lessons from country case studies. Very nice. We will tap into those. And then we have learn about ROI, tying with understanding how African films can reach larger regional audiences. Super nice. All right, thank you so much. We're gonna head back to the program.
All right, great. Thank you, Serene. So part of, I've seen like a lot of reference to Nigerian films here. So I'm just curious about the rest of us. No one watches our films. What is happening? So the work we've been doing with GIZ on audience development, and the countries we are focusing on in this work that we're going to do, very important work, are Kenya, Rwanda, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Egypt. And within the process of sort of doing the secondary research for the study and getting the data and the insights on film distribution in the continent, we are working with Dalberg, and a lot has come up in the process of like secondary and primary research for this study. And we have Daniel Omolo from Dalberg. He's an associate partner at Dalberg. He's going to sort of do just what most of us here want, sort of a look at case study on distribution for films. I think it's between 2020 and 2025, around that period that we would be focusing on in the scope of our work. So Daniel, welcome. It's up to you. Now you have 8.
When Serene asked me the movie, I tried thinking, I'm not really good with top of mind, but it's Umjolo, the Gone Girl. And it's interesting that Linda said that no Kenyan film is being mentioned, and I'm a Kenyan, but I mean, we also need to do a bit of cross-border watching as well. So thank you so much. I'd like to touch a bit more on the topic around navigating distribution to maximize ROI for the African films. And to start this off, you know, growing up in Kenya as a young man, there are names that kept coming up. And the Kenyan film industry was more or less defined by Nigerian films. So we had the likes of Mama G, Patience, one of the names that actually used to be within people who loved watching movies. You know, we'll go to these makeshift cinemas, and that's where our mothers will definitely find us. You're probably sent for sugar and you decide, let me go watch Aki and Popo, you know. You know, some really randoms. And I can't, one of the names that is hated and loved in Kenya is Genevieve, Blood Sisters. There's that's this very emotional movie, and everybody say Genevieve, they're like, oh, that bad sister, you know. So Kenyan industry is really much defined, way back was defined by, you know, Nigerian films. And is this working? Oh, thank you. So we mentioned a bit of distribution in the African film industry, and you probably have heard about this in the previous session, but there's nothing like enough knowledge, right? So our focus really is on ensuring that we give or get a bit of knowledge and insights into what is ailing the industry and what will be the next frontier. And it's touching on 4 thematic areas, one being the African film landscape industry analysis, how does it look like? Film audience development, touching a bit on sales and marketing as well. African film distribution channels, as well as touching on social impact and film financing. So we are doing this across quite a number of countries, 6 countries, as you can see, trying to ensure that there's good representation across of Africa, and with the hope that we can even scale this up to other countries so that we can get insights on a country-and-country basis, and of course appreciating that this space is also not very heavy when it comes to data, but what we can find will definitely help the industry. So on the next slide, I want to get into a bit of numbers and looking at the opportunity of film industry, at least projected to 2030, based on our numbers with a 4.8% annual growth rate, is almost getting to $1 billion. And this is massive. This is an opportunity. This is a number that everybody keep asking, okay, how can I get a share of that? You know, even if it's just 1% or so. And we doubled down on a few countries. And when you look at Nigeria driving just box office numbers, driving around 134.22 million projection for 2025 up to 2025, and this has led to almost 3.2 million jobs, which is amazing, definitely. With for the entertainment and media space, there's an 8.6% growth. What's interesting is it has about 333 screens from 102 cinemas, figures that you definitely are aware of. When we go to South Africa now, South Africa is one of the most infrastructure-heavy countries, driving also very big numbers in terms of box office, 182 million, and almost 50% of the cinemas in Africa are based in South Africa. They're coming from a pre-COVID space, so trying to also improve in that space. Then we have Egypt. Egypt is one of the oldest countries. When you think of film and all that, Egypt's name has to appear somewhere. But we've seen slight decline in Egypt, talking of 19.54 million in box office, and then you think of Egypt is not the picture that we thought we would get. And you know, while the job space is there, it's not as much when it comes to the numbers. When it comes to cinemas, we'll put a disclaimer: the data we got is not, it's just from one source, so maybe there could be more than 8 cinemas, but just in terms of context, you know, Egypt is slightly declining when you think of films. Then there's Kenya, my home country, at 20.34 million. Like I said, most of the movies were really defined by Nigerian movies, and what we see is a country that is trying to also get into that space with quite a bit of leveraging internet. When you think of OTT, they're pushing it out there through the leveraging Instagram, YouTube, to make sure that their films are out there and they're being watched. And this is creating some traction for movies from Kenya. And, you know, with a 5.2% annual growth rate is amazing. And yes, you know, 14 cinemas in Kenya. Now, what's interesting, I want you to look at South Africa. 182.53 million with 800 screens. And I want you to look at Nigeria. 134.22 million with 333 screens. Now, ideally, someone will say, South Africa is doing well. But here's the most interesting thing. When we really double down on South Africa, media numbers, 92% of the 182 million are international films. Money that is not home. Money that has found its way out. We walk into those 800 screens to generate 175 million that is not staying home. That's how bad the numbers look. When you look at Nigeria, however, that's the story we want to see. While the numbers seem lower, there is a 50% share of that number staying at home. And I can't stand here without appreciating Funke. Yes. You have a question? Oh, okay. Thank you. I can't be doing this podium justice. Okay, I can't be doing this podium justice without mentioning everybody loves Jennifer, you know, Funke, amazing numbers. And when you're thinking case studies, when you're thinking, how can we do this right? That's where we need to start, right? And there's Werad Rizik tree. I was just talking to Serene, and Serene said it's sons of Rizik, right? In Egypt as well, you know, grossing 12.1 million with 3.2 million in Egypt only. So while Egypt, you know, there's a decline, there's still opportunity, there's still more that can be done. It's not that it can't happen, it really can happen. And that's one of the movies we also can mention. Of course, we have Deadpool, you know, trying to find its way into the continent and also making a bit of revenue off of it. So what we're seeing here, the picture really is, there's more to learn into how we can bring the money home, how we can ensure that the money rotates and there's more impact into the industry without having the over 90s and 80s share being international movies. We'll touch a bit on streaming platforms, and we touched a bit on Showmax. Showmax has really increased when you're looking at subscriber bases, 1.05 million, 3.14 million in Africa. And this is just based on one thing, more around understanding the audience. They're doing more regionals, something Netflix is not doing, and it's connecting pretty much to the audiences. They're seeing familiar faces, they're seeing people that they meet in traffic, and they're seeing people that they can connect to, and that is making it very unique for streaming platforms. And when you think about a streaming platform, there's definitely more regional brands that are coming up. In Kenya, we have Viusasa. Viusasa is from Citizen, a TV broadcasting station. they've gone all the way down to daily rates. You can actually pay on a daily basis to watch a certain kind of TV show, and how they market it is, hey, you don't need to wait for next week, just pay now and we'll show you that episode, and then you kind of like are in front of the curve. Ebony Life on Plus, probably you're aware of it, streaming platform in Nigeria that is extremely coming up. So there are quite a bit of streaming platforms coming up. The question really is, how sustainable is this model when you think of streaming platforms? There's price wars. Everybody's trying to get a share of it. I talked about views that are going to like all the way down to daily prices. What can be done in a unique way to ensure that there is money that each and every person can get in this space? When we think about the audience, understanding the audience, there is also fatigue. So when you can't pay for Showmax, you pay for Netflix, you pay for Prime, you know, all that, and they're showing more or less the same things. What does that mean, right? So it's ensuring that we really understand how to tap the streaming space. And I was given 8 minutes, so I'll just leave you with a quote that I read from an article from LBX Africa. The boom in African streaming is full of opportunity as well as full of questions. And the question is, how sustainable are streaming platforms? Which platforms will still be here in 5 years? And how will this shape the way African films reach their audiences? That's the big question, being that the next frontier mostly are streaming platforms. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Are you done? Or so that's great. And right now we're going to go straight into the panel discussion where we'll be discussing just basically the theme is from local screens to global streams, navigating distribution to maximize ROI for African films. And for this discussion, we're going to just focus on 4 key themes that are very important for ROI, and that will be unlocking commercial pathways, learning from country case studies, which is extremely important, as you've sort of established through the Mentimeter survey, and as well as Daniel's presentation. And then we'll also have sort of like a deep dive into the role of cinemas, streaming platforms, and festivals in terms of how much money filmmakers are making, and also the infrastructure that is there for filmmakers to put their films on these spaces. And then we'll also focus on building collaborative ecosystems. And they gave us 25 minutes to discuss all these amazing, heavy, wonderful topics. But for right now, I'd like to call on our very amazing panelists. We'll start with Erica Motley. So Erica, I can't pronounce your third name because I'm very sub-Saharan Africa, and I've had like a lot of French troubles in the past few days. So if you could just help me with that pronunciation. Dupuis. Okay, thank you so much. Erica, so sorry, I had to. Erica is the executive producer at Impact X Capital. Thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. Next is Moses Babatope, the CEO of Nile Media Entertainment Group. There he is. And then, welcome Moses. And then next is Jason Njoku. Jason, you want me to clap and then dance and come get you? What's the drill? I don't. I see you. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I will. All of it. All of it. But thank you. Okay.
You asked me to say this.
Jason, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm great. And then it's not great, I know. I'm so sorry. And then next we have Steven Markovitz, the CEO of Big World Cinema. And then when it comes to building collaborative systems, we'll tap into Moses and Steve. And then Jason, if there's a burning issue, you'll just have like 2 seconds to sort of raise it up. Because like I said, they've given us like 25 minutes for this panel discussion. So I think I'll just start with Erica. So like, sorry, in the scope of like the film process, it starts with the story. So there's the development process, and then there's the producing the film, which includes a lot of costs. And when you have these costs, you also have to make sure that when the film is out, it generates profit, so you can recover whatever you spent on the film. And the way to generate profit is through distribution. So through the journey from development up to distribution, there's financing that's required. So from the question would be, from a financing perspective, how should films be structured and pitched? Like if I have a film idea, how do I pitch it so that banks and investors see the film as a viable commercial venture through the entire value chain? At whatever stage I'm at, I'm able to get investors.
Are you asking what we look at when we invest?
Yeah,
or?
like what will be from a financing perspective, yeah.
Okay. So I am a development investor, and when you apply for our development funding, we look at projections for the actual film. We're looking at what happens afterwards, because I shouldn't give you development if I can't figure out how to get the money back. And there's never one way. You know, you need to look at a mix of financing. You know, some of it is soft. You know, there's not a lot of soft money in Africa, but there is soft money in South Africa. And what a lot of people may not know is some of the South African treaties allow you to use other nationalities in Africa. For example, there's a treaty between the Netherlands and South Africa. You can use African creatives from anywhere in Africa and still qualify for that treaty. And you're probably asking me, why is that important? It's not just for tax credits, it's so that your content is considered European as a co-production. If your content is considered European, people are more likely to buy it. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why is a co-production considered from the country? But it's a trick. It's a way in, not just for soft funding, which we don't have a lot of that in Africa. It helps us as an investor get our returns faster. But for you to qualify as a Canadian through a co-production or as a European film, people are more likely to buy it for distribution. So that's one thing I always want people to think about that's not obvious, because people think co-productions are just for tax credits, but it's more important to have the qualification in the company. That's the first thing. The other thing is you want to mix. You don't want to see, and sometimes you can't help this. The only way to get something made is Netflix is going to fully buy it. I try not to do that. We try to mix our financing so that the distribution will be mixed later, and I'll tell you why. We want you to keep as much money as possible. If someone fully funds your film, you're not going to get any upside. You're only going to get your producing fee. If you're able to package the funding through different sources, soft funding through tax credits and co-productions, grant money, a pre-buy from a local distributor, if you're able to package the funding, then if there is an upside, it comes back to you. So we are always looking at, is there a way to blend the financing so that not just that we get our money back, but so you get the highest return possible. So when we look at a film, we don't expect you to know all of that. We look at, do you have credits? And if you don't have credits and you have a great idea, we will actually pair you with someone who does. On our first project, Iyana was actually a series and a film. It was a creator from Nigeria. He had written a book, but he didn't have any credits, so we actually paired him with a writer-director in the US, and we kept him in the writer's room. So he was able to learn. He will get the upside from the merchandising, and he had a different idea that we hadn't seen before. So part of this is finding producers, like the people on this panel, who can help you to package your project so that if you have a great idea and you don't have a lot of experience, that we put other talent, we surround you. We surround you with other talent. We also give you script editors to make sure that you can get the best possible version of your voice. So we're not looking at how much financing you bring. That's kind of our job, to figure out how to structure the financing with you. We're looking at your flexibility. You know, are you willing to only, maybe it's a Netflix film, or it's partially HBO and somewhere else, it's a local film, maybe it's a lower budget so that we can control what the actual content is. So it's a lot of it for me is, if you're emerging and you're trying to get to international, is finding the right partners. And there are producers in Africa who've done a lot of co-productions, so they can help you with that. So my advice to people is always to start with your team, right? When you have an idea, don't try to do this all by yourself. Try to find people who have done similar films who are willing to partner with you. And all money is not created equal. When you figure out who your financiers are, you should be looking for people who are willing to support you, not just give you money. I'm not giving you money and expecting you to fail. To me, the money's the beginning. Then I need to help you get the rest of the financing there. Not everyone does that. So we are, again, of course, it always starts with a good idea that's well developed. And I know that's challenging, and it's why I push young filmmakers to go to labs, so they have the time and the space to work with other expertise to develop. And we're also looking at how we can pair you with people who either can give you tax credits or help you to package with bigger talent so that we can sell your film outside of Africa.
Thank you so much. And it's really interesting that you mentioned, follow that up with Steve later, but Moses, I'm going to ask you a question that I don't think anyone has asked you before.
Okay, what is that? because I was going to, have a different perspective to Aha's perspective, which is very real scenario when it comes to commercial filmmaking in Nigeria, in West Africa, and probably everywhere else except South Africa. And soft money in our own industry, and let me use Nollywood specifically, hardly exist. There are no treaties, tax credits are not there, so it's important to give that perspective. And thank you for, shaping it, and I believe it works for many a filmmaker. For us, when we're financing films, we're looking strictly at what talent is involved in the film, particularly, let me start from the story or the story idea and what kind of genre it is. And then, very, very importantly, because of the level we are in terms of not a lot of buyers, not a lot of people willing to put in a lot of money in terms of licensing it. So it's important for me that you have some kind of track record, as a director or as a producer. Or if you haven't, who are you partnering with to help you deliver that film, right? And who are the talents in the film, right? What kind of budget level are we looking at? Are you, and look, it's very important also, and again, this is the real world, that you have a level of, knowledge of film business. So what comparable films, do you have knowledge of, and how were they monetized, or how did they work, and what returns did happened with the film? Those are the kind of things that we look at now, and it's emerged a lot more in the last 4 or 5 years with the advent of the streamers. It's a lot more stringent now with the streamers cutting down, because what we're looking at is it has to have potential, to do well if it's going to cinema, or has to be absolutely one of the best ones that the streamers will pick out and say they want to take, or your investment horizon is 2 to 4 years in terms of when you're expecting to return on investment, because that would mean cinema might not work. It will mean going to a local platform, and local platforms will not give you a tenth of what the streamers would give you.
Yeah.
So it might mean a short exclusive window and then syndicated across a number of platforms. And that then takes a lot of time for you to get the money back. So it's a lot more of a, painstaking process now in terms of raising money. But I think that as we get, platforms emerging and those platforms are monetizing content well, whether it's AVOD or TVOD or SVOD, then the financing models will continue to evolve. Where we found ourselves in a scenario where it's not as straightforward as it was 2-3 years ago, where you could go to cinema and there's an off-taker agreement already with the streamer, whether it's direct or based on the box office threshold you've met, you're going to get a licensing deal. And I think it's also important to mention these are a lot for the premium films. I like to also talk about the practicality of the 2,000 other films that get made in Nollywood. A lot of people don't talk about that. We talk about the 200 films that get to cinema. There are 2,000 other films that get made for $15,000 or less. That the different kind of financial model, and it's very subsistence. It's very, I'm going to have a star face. They're going to come and shoot for 1-2 days. We'll shoot it for 4 days, 5 days. We'll be on YouTube in 4 weeks, and we would hopefully monetize in 2 months, 3 months, and we're back on set again, and we keep revolving.
Okay.
All right, so yeah.
Thank you so much, and it's great that you mentioned cinema, because you do, through Nile Entertainment, you do the usual half-year film, and I appreciate the commitment just to do the film business intelligence report every half year. There's box office data, there's audience insights, there's revenue details. We get like billions and billions of shillings. I'm just going to ask you this question, and I just want one answer, like 2-word, 3-word answer.
I'll try.
So this billions of naira made every year through theatrical film distribution, what happens to it after everyone has recouped their investments and made profit? So is it reinvested back into production or audience development or infrastructure? What happens to, we see the numbers, we see there's a lot of money, but then where does it go after that? Does it go into buying fancy cars, or does it? So
it's a simple answer. Most of it goes back into the industry, and you see it in the numbers. Year on year on year, Nollywood is increasing in as a share of box office value. It's also increasing the share of quantity of films done. Also, the production budgets are going up. They went up, sporadically because of the streamers, but the audience now demand more. Sorry, you said 1 or 2 words. I'm just going to say that, because it's one of those things that require context, right? So a lot of it goes back. So someone like Funke Akindele makes a film for an average of $400,000 to $600,000. You see how every December it's a commitment, to come. There'll be profit made that would, be used towards, challenging the next type of, film that will require multi-locations and bigger marketing, and there are a number of them that are always coming to the cinema every year. Let me make this very important point. It's an independent film industry. It's not an industry where you have US studios that take care of development or marketing. These are guys that literally have their own production company and do all the turnaround and everything themselves, right? This is their livelihood. So if they don't make films, they don't know what else to do. So that's where those are where those funds come. And we're very grateful to them, because without those guys for the Nollywood industry, there will be no cinema for sure.
Okay, great. It's good to know now. And then just to follow up on what the both said around soft money, Steve, I just wanted to ask, is there a possibility of having 100% African soft money? Yes, and hard investment in continent-based platforms. So how would that look like? And how do we get audience buy-in into these types of platforms?
I don't know. No, I think that I would challenge that there's no soft money in Africa, because I think with private investors what we find is you've always got to ask what's motivating someone to put money into your film. And sometimes, if it's purely commercial, which is most of the time, but often people put money into films for all kinds of reasons. It can sometimes be vanity, they want a proximity to celebrity, it could be around an issue the film's dealing with. So I think there is money in Africa for films that's not entirely hard, and I've found that everywhere. So where we've worked. But your first question was around examples of films also that this thing around making a film for your budget that it can get its money back, and I wanted to just give an example of that, if you don't mind. 15 years ago I was involved in a film called Viva Riva, which when we did the finance plan and we had Africa there, we didn't know what number to put in there. There wasn't enough precedent, so we put 0 in there. Okay, now today you can actually put some reasonable numbers in there, and I just want to make that point. We've actually made quite a lot of progress since then, that there actually is a real market now. Sure, it's off a low base, but it's on the increase. If you go to Europe and the States, there's a lot of very depressed producers there who are not finding a way to make it work. But we're actually building something here, and I think it's super positive what we're doing. I think there are still ways. You've also got to ask what is your ambition for the film as a producer? What is your aim? Not every film has to go to some international festival. That's not always the most important thing. Are you making it for the local market, regional or international market? And I think there are ways to make films at lower budgets that can make money, and we've done that quite a few times. It's much more risky because you're not really going to get a decent salary at the time, but you're building your IP. And what we found during COVID when we couldn't work, it was our catalog that really got us through COVID, because we were able to license all these films. So I think as producers we have to keep building our libraries in that way. So I know I haven't really answered your question.
I think you've answered many more questions that any one of us would sort of have had. So I'll just go on to just the aspect of case studies. And Moses, I'd like to come back to you. So like for cinema in Nigeria, there's sort of there's an audience that has sort of developed around Nigerian films, as well as I think mostly Hollywood films. So how can we build on sort of the infrastructure and work and effort that has gone into building audiences for Nigerian films in Nigeria? How do we now make sure that we reduce the percentage of American films or international films, and sort of fill that gap in with films from Egypt, films from South Africa, films from Kenya, films from other countries in Africa? Is there a chance? Will Nigerians come to watch a South African film? Is that something that we can sort of find a way to make that work for the continent?
A simple answer is yes. And there are a number of examples. We've played in Nigeria, we've played Cameroonian films, we've played South African films, we've played Kenyan films. If I remember very well, probably 1 or 2 North African films, I'm not very sure now. But I think we could do all of those things to tick a box. And, yes, we do that. But we can be deliberate about it using platforms like this. The Africa area, the influence of Afrexim and CANNEX, where we're really deliberate about telling stories, between different countries. I honestly think that we're missing $1 million to $2 million box office, film in Nigerian South African collaboration that's done well. I think we're missing something with East Africa. There's 400 million Swahili speakers, 400 million English speakers. Yeah. I think the easiest way to open, those doors is, deliberate collaboration. Mm-hmm. In the next few weeks, you would see a film shot by a British-Chinese guy that literally just looked on the map and like, wow, West Africa is interesting. Nigeria has all these millions of people and have a thriving film industry. I'll pair up with this chap, British-Nigerian chap, sharp and I want to go tell a story in Nigeria. And the difference is it tells a film made for $150,000 and it's a remarkable production with some Nollywood stars in it. And I give that to say the example that these things can be done, right? But it's not just about saying Kenyan films, play Rwandan films, is let's build it. Okay. You know, when America was going to go into, or was going to be appealing to the Chinese industry, they started, casting Chinese stars in their Hollywood films, right? When they were going to make a big impact in the Middle East, you see some Middle East stars in their films. And that's what we need to do. We need to also create writer rooms, where we share those experiences. It needs to be deliberate stuff. And, like I said, we've done well with Hollywood films. If you look at the top 10, top 20 for Netflix, for example, you will see Korean series, you will see Turkish films, you will see Bollywood films, you will see Chinese. So there is a real appetite. It's a very dynamic market. It's and I think Nigeria is worth mentioning because if you just look at the box office trajectory as well, it's a reason to want to partner with. It's also a big consumer market, right? So it makes sense to be deliberate about trying to partner, trying to unlock, the potentials there, and it's willing to, to experience new cultures and new stories. So for me, the easiest way is you have an East African project, you are targeting Nigeria, use a Nigerian face in it. Very, very simple. In South Africa, the same thing. Don't use someone that cannot, embody the language or the culture, and you open up another, we just saw it, 300 plus screens by doing that.
Oh, fantastic. And I think I'll just take what you've said on sort of co-productions, basically, and come to you, Steve. So in the past, 30 years, you have worked. And you've played a key role in productions in Kenya, Togo, Benin, Cameroon, Nigeria, Niger, Ghana, Mauritania, Cape Verde, Senegal, all these more than 35 countries. It's a great number. So what's the outlook for countries like Algeria, Egypt, and Morocco in terms of productions or even co-productions with some of the countries you've worked in? So within the context of you understanding these markets and the potential of the North African film sector co-producing with these countries, what do you see? What do you think?
I know we don't have a lot of time, I'll be brief, but I think that you don't co-produce only to get money from another country. You also co-produce to get expertise about that market, and you can learn a lot. You're not going to know what's going on the ground in Nigeria or Egypt, etc. So we need partners who can bring expertise, if it's technical, crew, or the market itself, or both. So I think it's really important to kind of build those bridges. But I think there's a bigger question that I think about a lot around, I think as our films, African films, we have a branding problem. I think we have a real serious branding problem with our films. Outside of Africa, the way our films are perceived is very skewed, playing into stereotypes, and we have to shift that, and it's not something any individual company can do here. It needs a concerted effort and an overarching effort with ad agencies, with celebrities, whatever we have to do. And if you look in the way how countries deal with tourism and how much money is spent on promoting tourism, we need to take a similar kind of approach to build understanding between our markets and globally. And I think it's going to take a massive effort to change that branding, because I've seen we make a film, it does fairly well, and then 2 years later another film comes. We need volume of films at a level that's really working, but not just that we can't expect it just, your company doing all the marketing for that one film. There needs to be an overall building up of the films we're making, which I think will make a huge difference and will build much more understanding of each other's markets.
Fantastic. So that's really great. That thoughtful way of sort of collaborating and doing work in different countries, and also the idea of how African films are branded globally. So Jason, are you awake? I'm so sorry. So you've had quite the experience with just the financing elements of iROKOtv, and most of us read your article on your website. I believe it was in March of this year. And there's so much you say that maybe most of us should have learned something about our approach to creating and developing platforms within the continent. But it's like we really, really want to crack this thing, because even after that, after all the insights, we still see new platforms coming up. And then you're like, can we just take a moment and and reflect? But what do you foresee or forebode for these platforms? Is based on your experience, because everyone, it's not even just in Nigeria, in Kenya as well. Everyone wants to build a platform. Everyone wants investment for a platform.
Yeah, no. So I think, firstly, I have not seen a market anywhere in the world where the domestic market is out-monetized than the global market, if that makes any sense. So the most lucrative areas for Korean content is Korea, Japanese, Japan, China, right? Turkish content, amazing content, the most well monetized is locally in its domestic market. Again, Latin America, everywhere around the world, that has been the case. So from a Nollywood perspective, we have to really just ground ourselves with the fact that Nigeria is not doing well in a macroeconomic sense. Sure, people do have money and there is growth in terms of cinema volume, but in terms of tickets are going down, which means that just the number of tickets is going down, but the amount they're putting on those tickets is pretty expensive, right? So those are the macros. Any future projection at the beginning has to be grounded by that reality. You know, I've spent the best part of 15 years floating between South Africa and like Nigeria in terms of how to monetize. South Africa does incredibly well at monetizing on Africa. I think somewhere close to like 80% of the monetization for content sits in South Africa. I was checking earlier on with Ijoma. MultiChoice's last financial year budget was $1.15 billion. No one comes close to that. Like nothing comes close to that. I would argue that nothing ever will come close to that. If you now throw in Canal Plus, that's $1.6 billion in content. Nothing could ever come close to that. Now that is the grounding of our reality. Does that mean that must be our reality? No. You know, I spend a lot of time, you know, because I've lost money in music, I spend a lot of time around people in music, right? And I think one thing that the Nigerian music industry has done incredibly well is they've realized that the inspiration and the creation must happen in Nigeria. But the monetization is not in Nigeria. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, I think there was a time when Flavor, who didn't have a big album at the time, he was living in the US. And he would just go from one place to the other, 20, 30 times a year, $25,000 here. That was all he was doing. Not releasing new music, just going back from his previous music and just floating around. Now, people like that created a platform where Charlie Poppy will emerge today. He'll have 2 or 3 big songs, and they don't need Afreximbank, they don't need any money. There's people who will reach out to them, sign them to a label, Empire, whatever it is. Boom, within 6 months, that person is doing 5, 6, 10,000 person tours across Europe, etc., etc. That is what essentially has sustained and built that industry, and that is why they make so much money. And that is why WizKid, who hasn't had a good song in a really long time, I don't know how much you guys paid him, but it wasn't cheap. Like, take some of that WizKid money and share it to the industry. Let's see what's really happening. But again, because somebody put these things in place, right? But do I believe there is an opportunity for Nollywood to do the same? Absolutely. I don't think I've heard today really much about how people are planning to monetize the West, right? And I'm talking about Nigerians in the West. Because guess what? All of the people who are watching YouTube, it's not really Nigerians in Nigeria that are making their money from. It's Nigerians in the UK, in Canada, in the United States. And again, I was the first person to have a commercial like contract with YouTube going back 15 years ago, and I knew that all the money was in the West. Nothing has really changed. Why? Because the ad rates are there, everything is there in place. You know, in terms of streaming, I think the biggest strategic mistake I made was for the first 5 years of iROKOtv, we were fully focused on UK, US, that was it. Didn't care about Nigeria. Wasn't ready. My investors, you know, really said, no, this is like, you're supposed to be winning in Nigeria. If you don't win in Nigeria, like, you've lost everything. And I listened to them. I essentially de-emphasized the West, and I focused all of my energy, all of my money in Nigeria. And when Nigeria failed, everything failed. I remember I always say this, that like my investors used to give me shit like 2018, 2019, what's going on? You're not winning. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not winning. Then who is? Show me the person who's winning in this market so I can understand why you say that I'm a loser.
Yeah.
And in the end, no one was ultimately winning. So I feel that, like, even if you build another 100 cinemas in Nigeria, if the Naira devalues from 1,550 to 3,000, good luck with that. Like, again, like I lived in Ghana for 5 years. I've seen devaluation from like 3 Ghana cedis up to 15. I've seen the economic despair, and like that. The first thing that goes is essentially like consumption, right? So, from my perspective, and I was talking to the guys from Film One earlier this year, when they were launching their streaming service, I told them, make this thing for the UK, US, Canada. Why are you making it $5.99? Like, you can't even buy a bottle of water in the US for $5.99. Like, no one's doing $5.99 streaming service anymore. Give it $10, people will pay because you have amazing content. And just to sort of like land on this, like, has anyone heard of Mubi?
Yeah.
Like Mubi is just like the most amazing thing possible, because they literally have like old content, but they wrap it in like, we're creating cinema files. If your IQ levels will go up 10 basis points, you know, like that's it, right? It's like, you know, anytime you meet someone who's like one of those, like, a lot of them are usually French, but there's like aficionados, like old school movies, black and white stuff. We don't care, man. Like, but that's like, I got a movie subscription. Look at me, I'm smart. They have 10 million subscribers plus. They just raised $100 million at a $1 billion valuation. I don't know if they changed it dramatically, but they used to have 30 movies a month. And then they change it. 30 movies a month, and they have 10 million subscribers. Because guess what? Most people in the West are busy. They're not going to watch 30 movies in a month. But if they can create the right movies for the right opportunities. Yeah. So for me, I don't see a version of where a Carver or anybody else, even like Funke, she put all her content into a streaming product and said $10 a month, that she can't get to a point where it's $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 million a year in revenue. I don't see why they can't do that. But they're not doing that because it's easier just to put it on YouTube or do something else. So I feel that the real conversation needs to be, why is it so under-monetized in the West?
All right, that's sort of interesting. The focus on the West. And my next question to you was going to be around YouTube. So you sort of really answered it, but it was sort of like just basically there are a lot of Nigerian films on YouTube, very, very many, like almost every day. There's like 1 million channels.
It's commercial suicide.
It's commercial suicide.
It's commercial suicide. No two ways about it. But again, how can I put it now? There is no movie industry that I am aware of anywhere in the world who uses YouTube as their primary monetization platform.
Okay.
And this is where the cottage-like industry of like Nollywood starts to hurt itself. Once upon a time, Nigerian musicians, they made all of their stuff available for free on MP3s because they wanted to get the They wanted to get the popularity. They wanted the songs to be out there. Then they'll use that money to do tours.
Okay.
But the moment Spotify organized the industry and realized that, wait, why would I release my song as an MP3 when I send you my Spotify or whatever link and I'll actually make some real money there?
Yeah.
Why would I put out my content on like these CDs where you can just go and like watch my videos when you go to YouTube I can actually make some money, right? That's for like 3-minute content, right? So I feel in the long term, if you have and this, I guess this is a scary part, you're essentially training a whole generation of Nigerian movie watchers in the US, in the UK, in Canada, that this stuff is not worth very much.
All right, yeah, that's true.
And once you've trained them to get them to pay, our people already, they do, to not pay, they do Jackie Chan, they be doing crazy things. But in the end, it's like, if you train them that not to pay,
they won't pay.
They won't pay. And more importantly is, the quality of content is actually really good, to the point where they're using the same actors as the one that you're asking people to pay.
Yeah.
So it's the same actors, the camera quality is not that distinguishable. The stories are kind of similar, sometimes they're better. So what do you end up doing? You end up stunting the industry. Now, on an individual level, if I'm sitting on YouTube making 10, 20, 30, $50,000 a month, that's fantastic. But what are you giving up? What is the opportunity cost that you're actually giving up?
Yeah.
And will you ever be able to cover that? So I fundamentally believe in 5 years' time, as internet penetration really kind of takes off in places like Nigeria, it becomes a problem for Canal Plus and Multi-Choice.
Multi-Choice, Showmax, yeah.
And their budgets are big.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of the people who are shooting for YouTube, they're making the money from the big platforms already. So.
Moses has a burning one. 2 seconds, Moses.
I just want to say, look, I'm not going to disagree with someone that has had 15 years experience in the space, but I'm very passionate about that 1 billion market on the continent. And Nigeria, for example, 200 million. I think that there is a path to monetizing that number and giving power back to the creators at home. I think that in the diaspora, yes, it's there. I feel it's still small in size. I think you're competing with so many other, streaming platforms. I feel like we have to be strategic again, talking to CANNEX and Afrexim. The telcos are going to have to be involved in this, and it's going to be one that, some kind of policy framework around it as well, for us to really unlock that 100 million smartphones, for Christ's sake, connected. How are we not monetizing that? How are we in 2025? I can understand. My brother did it 7-8 years ago with all the kiosks. It was ahead of its time, revolutionary stuff. But in 2025, we've got to be able to make it work.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So we started with Erica, we'll finish with Erica. So I'm just sort of on festival circuits and African filmmakers and how they're sort of trying to find some commercial success through film festivals, especially independent filmmakers. There's always this thing of, if I make it to an A-list international film festival, then my film will do well everywhere, anywhere. And you can see the desperation sometimes, and just the belief that they have in their minds that the only way to gain commercial success is to first put my film on an A-list international film festival, as opposed to maybe a film festival in the continent. Where does that come from? What is an A-list film festival in the first place?
It's not true. You need to find the right festival for your film. The right festival may be Durban. For animation, it might be Annecy. There's so many festivals, and I believe in festivals because this is the truth. Streamers don't market, and a lot of films are not going to get theatrical release, and your festival is the only way you really have marketing and reviews. But every festival has value. You have to understand who your primary audience is first, and that's the festival you should start with. If you get, it's funny, I live in France, right? They're like, Cannes is a pipe dream. 1 out of 100 films get into Cannes. Why are you focused on that? That is the wrong focus. The focus needs to be, is genre, right? So if it's a genre film, maybe you should go to GIZ in Spain, because that's where your audience is going to be. If it's animation, maybe it's Annecy. Durban is a great festival. You get awards. People review it. So it's a myth. Let's be honest, you only want to look at what wins the audience prize, because a lot of the ones that win the actual festival are terrible. Nobody's going to watch those films.
No, it's true.
They're not going to make any money. There's an inverse relationship to what wins and what actually people want to see. So you have to have a bit of reality check in this and sort of think about what's the best strategy for your film. I just wanted to comment on something he said. There's not a competition between whether you make things work throughout Africa,
Yeah.
because I think the Pan-Africa and the diaspora is the same issue. We need to do both. You know, again, our first series, which also is a movie, is a Nigerian project. We use Nigerian voices, we use Nigerian animators, and we paired them with other people. It's sold to HBO, is #1 on the Cartoon Network in the US,
Yeah.
is 100% Nigerian. So you can't, you can't tell people that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, so you need examples like that. You know, guess what? When it launched on Showmax, it did well as well. It's #1 on Showmax. It's #1 on ITV. It's just, people don't have the chance. And how it got there was from development stage. It wasn't after. We thought about that strategy from the beginning, but we made sure, my first deal after HBO was Showmax.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to make sure it was shown in Africa, not just in Nigeria, not just in South Africa, but everywhere. So you have to think about both, because our audiences are Pan-African in the continent and out the continent, both in terms of who you work with. Every project I have is diaspora. I don't have one that's just one country.
Yeah.
Because we need to be able to sell it in other places. And people want to see it. You know, it's like, this is why Ayano was such a good test case, because people can't come to me now and say, that Nigerian film is not going to work in America.
Yeah.
Because now I can prove that it does. Right?
Great. So thank you so much all for our view. Serene, did we go over 25 minutes? Do we have time for questions? All right. So any questions? Great. Okay. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Simon Chakonte. I'm the founder of Dalino Media, a company based in Paris, specialized in distribution. So I agree with what you say, Madame Dupuis, I know how to pronounce it very well, about African content to the US, because I started selling Nigerian content to the US a couple of years ago. And at the beginning, those were Chevy channels, because most people, when they go to the US, they feel like, I will be on Tubi, yeah, I'll be putting on any platform in the US. People don't want my channel in the US. And then I started prospecting, and there was this TV channel that was looking for for African content. And what they were doing, they had a different business model. They was like, Simon, I'm not going to pay a flat fee, but we're going to be getting the content, going to see the advertisers in the US, and if they're okay to sponsor the film, then we're going to have it on our TV channel. So they were making every month, just from advertising revenue per Nigerian film, $10,000 to $15,000, and they were sharing 25% with me and the producer. So imagine per film, so the producer could get like $3,000 to $4,000 every month, just with Nigerian content. And when they got back to me with one thing is, so it means that it works, because they told me that the main audience was Black American. And you know, the population of more than 40 million people is huge in America. So when we talk, we only mention always the diaspora, but we also have Black American loving African content. And I was in Cannes, because I keep going to different events, I was in Cannes for the premiere of Osamede. Osamede that Moses is distributing. It's a very great Nigerian film that we'll see soon. It's great, it's amazing. And in the room, there were many people from the US, from Brazil, from other regions of the world. And they really connected to Osamede, because that was a Nigerian story, and they related to the story. And I'm like, okay, I myself I went from content distribution to helping company to start their own streaming platform in Africa. I've been doing that for many years, and only now in the pipe, I have more than 80 people in Africa who want to launch a streaming platform. So it's great, but is that the solution? Because the solution for me is also about the marketing, because I have a lot of friends, they tell me they're looking for content, but they don't know where to watch the content. So if we just everyone wants to build a streaming platform, it's great. But if you don't have any money for marketing, to market your streaming platform, for distribution, to have them on Samsung, LG, Hisense, TCL, all the major connected TVs. If you don't have any money to support the tech, because there are tech costs, and tech costs can literally kill your business. So people need to think about it. So this is why maybe, Afreximbank, CANNEX can also be helpful, like to sustain this streaming platform on the tech costs, because those are in the marketing. Because if you have, content is easy to get. I mean, people can easily get 5,000 hours of content today. But the main issue resides in marketing. Like, how do you do for someone from South Africa to know that that content produced from Ivory Coast is great? You know, like Motley had Chaka. I was in Johannesburg to meet with Motley. I saw the whole post of Chaka. But Chaka is not in French-speaking Africa. So it's good to have content. That's what we talked about recently. Ijoma mentioned it about marketing budget, and also you, Moses. And also, we also need to also enhance on dubbing. That dubbing is very important. How do you do to sell something from Côte d'Ivoire? Because French-speaking Africa has great content, but Netflix is still not acquiring French-speaking African content. I spoke with them again 2 months ago. They said we're still not doing it, despite although they have a partnership with Canal Plus. So I'm like, why? Why are you getting the English-speaking content, dub them to French for the French-speaking market, but you don't want to acquire French-speaking content? It makes no sense. So we also need to also change the narrative. It means that they don't know what is going on in the French-speaking space, and they don't understand that Canal Plus has made a lot of money in that space until they keep coming to buy Motley. So it means there's money there. And it's also for English speakers to be like, okay, let me dub my English at least to French. There are two main languages in Africa. Official languages, French and English. So how come content from Ivory Coast never land in Botswana? Or how come content from Uganda never land in Togo? And we want to explore the international market when we are not even consuming what we already have in Africa. So I was the juror for the Ugandan Film Festival, and I watched 330 movies. And I'll tell you, there are great stories in Uganda. But people aren't even buying Ugandan content because they don't know Uganda. Uganda doesn't market itself like South Africa does, like Nigeria does, like Egypt does, like Kenya does. So yeah, so I wanted to have the insight and say people should, where maybe the bank could be helpful for the African continent is on the marketing, like Ijoma mentioned previously. Marketing is key. I've never seen on YouTube any African film popping when I'm watching a video say, well, go watch this at the cinemas. Or, you know, there's no marketing budget. But when I'm on YouTube, I see Mission Impossible. I see Black Panthers. So yeah.
Thank you for the great comment. That's not a question.
Sorry, can I say something? Can I add something to what you just said? Do we have
Sure.
That want to launch platforms. That's where the whole attention is now. I think it's very important that they go and sit down with people like Jason and other people who may have tried this. Don't gamble, because there is a gap. We know there is a gap. Do you understand? But again, if we are not careful, right, we're going to see in the next 4 or 5 years the birthing of failed platforms, because people have not bothered to understudy that why is it that literally there has not been any successful subscription video on demand. There's something that we are missing. And if everybody wants to come and repeat the same thing, then that means we have not solved any problem.
So Jason has taken that as a question, and he's going
Okay, great.
I think so, and this is a beautiful thing. The great thing about MultiChoice, it's a public company. You can go, I don't know if anyone actually goes and reads their annual reports, right? In the last 2 years, Showmax has lost $440 million. That is fact. That is fact. So when everyone's like, oh yeah, Showmax, they're doing this, they're doing that, they lost $440 million in 2 years.
A lot. A lot.
So when people are excited, when people are saying these things, it always has to be grounded in reality. If you talk to people in MultiChoice today, they're so happy they've passed that business over to Canal Plus. Because it's hard. Like it is so hard. And let me let them. So I'm currently primarily based in the UAE, right? And if you're based in Africa, you'll know Yango. If you're, everyone should know Yango, one of the biggest ride-hailing services, right? Massive, right? Funny enough, in 2019, they wanted to actually buy iROKOtv, the African business, because they wanted to use that as a wedge to launch this thing they call Yango Play. They have a Yango Play streaming service, like globally, right? So like, we want to buy the company. They put an offer together. My board members at the time were like, no, we wanted to go big, etc., etc. That one's aside. So when we've seen things, but anyway, in the end they were like, we're not going to buy iROKO, we can't buy iROKO. We'll see if we can launch it ourselves. In the end they were like, they didn't launch it, and the reason why, they were like, well, we've looked around and it seems like no one's winning. We can't find the winner to be like, benchmark, we're going to go against that guy, right? And when they launched in the UAE, if anyone's been to Dubai recently, you'll see Yango Play like adverts everywhere. They spent $30 million to launch that in the UAE. In the first 6 months, they signed up 750,000 people, and their charges are between $15 and $20 per month after the initial like 3 months free. So they're good. It made perfect sense for them to spend that money, invest that money. But if they did that in Nigeria, they wouldn't see anywhere close to that in terms of people's ability to pay. So I think the key thing is that there's publicly available data to ground our expectations of what it should be. I think everyone talks about Showmax, they should understand that. The other thing is that when everyone talks about Netflix doesn't have one person in Africa. Like, they have no office, no team, no regulation, like nothing. Like nothing. In fact, they pull people from Kenya, take them to Amsterdam. So I think it's when you think of what Netflix is doing in Africa, they're doing nothing. Do you know why? Because Africa's like this, they kind of added it to like Middle East and North Africa and stuff like that. It's just somewhere there. It's not even the fact that they have no one in Africa tells you how much they think about Africa. I can't think of any other company I've ever come across in my life since I've been in that West Africa or Africa that does not have at least one, at least dash a small, even Twitter, dash one small office. Let it be that we have something. Nothing.
They do have a few lawyers on retainer in Johannesburg, just for the record. No, I just want to say one thing quickly. I don't think these 80 VOD platforms, I don't think we should just dismiss that quickly. I don't think anyone here or anywhere has the answer of what exactly is going to work. We have to keep trying things. I'm seeing young filmmakers in their early 20s setting up hyper-localized VOD platforms in places like Kenya and elsewhere. These are exciting. We've got to monitor this and support where things are working. I don't think we can say it was done 10 years ago, it didn't work, so therefore we still don't know, is my view.
All right, one more question and we need to wrap. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and what you say, and I'm coming from French-speaking country, so I want to speak in French, please. It will be easy for me to explain you what I want, okay? Y a-t-il quelqu'un pour traduire pour eux? Ah ouais? Oh, Dieu merci. Ah, c'est super. Je suis très content. Depuis que je suis là, je vous écoute parler et vous parlez de beaucoup d'argent, millions, trillions, billions et tout. Et je pense que vous êtes tous des producteurs et vous êtes dans l'industrie, ça fait belle lurette. Je suis Mathieu Abalo, auteur, réalisateur et comédien. Je ne suis pas producteur. J'écris des histoires et j'interprète des personnages. Alors moi, ma question s'adresse à vous, les producteurs. Quels sont les critères pour lesquels vous choisissez de produire un film? Est-ce que c'est parce que le film vous rapporte beaucoup d'argent ou parce que le film a un message qui est important pour les téléspectateurs? Je voudrais juste continuer, si vous me permettez, pour vous dire que certes, le cinéma à la base a été fait pour divertir les gens. quand le cinéma est arrivé. Et progressivement, le cinéma est devenu un outil. Et je parle ici des réalisateurs pionniers du cinéma africain comme Tarar Cheria, Ahmed Ondo, Djibril Mambeti Diop, Sambel Ousmane, qui, ces pères, ces pionniers ont fait du cinéma un outil de revendication, d'engagement, de messages à véhiculer. Et aujourd'hui, je vois bien qu'il y a la globalisation, le monde évolue et nous aussi en Afrique, on aimerait faire partie de cette course mondiale. Mais je souhaite que nous comprenions tous que les contextes et les réalités du contexte dans lequel nous vivons en Afrique ne sont pas les mêmes que les contextes en Europe. Sur ce, ma question reste toujours la même. Quels sont les critères en tant que vous, producteur, vous choisissez avant de produire un film? Merci.
So he's asking people in the room, especially the producers, which criteria do you have when selecting a film? Is it because the film is going to make you make a lot of money, or because the film is conveying a specific message? So he's still asking, given the international cultural context, which criteria do you use to select a film, or to choose a film, or to produce, or to fund the film?
I'll be very brief. I know we're running over time. I don't think there's one criteria. You know, I keep saying now that I'm in my 50s, I'm starting to grow up a little bit, and you know, that financial viability has become far more important. Especially, there are so many films in the world that are not going to get seen, that are not going to find audiences. We need to be really careful about what we do. But I think an overarching criteria for my company is that if it is surprising, if it's unusual, if it's challenging the dominant narrative of Africa, those are like really important things. If it's predictable, if it's safe, then I'm not interested.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here on the panel and just sharing your insights and talking to us. And it's such a great honor because we know you're like very busy, super important people, but you made time for us. So thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who made it here. So have a lovely evening. Just an update on the research and the study we are doing with Dalberg. It will be out in February of next year, and I bet each and every one of you will have access to it. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening.
What's this? I have the screen.
Okay. All right. Just before you leave, there's a CANNEX QR code that you need to sort of fill up for a satisfaction survey. So please, if you have a moment to just take a few seconds of your time.
Please, this is very important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be like we didn't have a session here. So
all right, please, don't leave. So the satisfaction survey for CANNEX. Yeah, you do it now. All of us, we do the satisfaction survey for CANNEX, please. Thank you.